Well, hello again. Today is April 15th, tax day, and it's also the 91st day of the legislative session. So just filling you in on some things coming up this week. The Finance Committee is working hard as usual. We actually heard a bill today that would allow folks to give their permanent fund dividend back to state government. But one of the glitches in it is the person who got that permanent fund dividend would still have to pay federal taxes on it. So the Finance Committee is thinking about, is there a way to get around that so that people could do it without levying probably a $700 to $900 federal income tax fee or federal income tax for having received a permanent fund dividend at a $3,000 dividend. Tomorrow, the Finance Committee is going to be reviewing various labor contracts. In the Judiciary Committee, they're looking at the Title IV rewrite. That deals with our alcohol laws. And the crime bills continue to move through Judiciary as well as State Affairs. So I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about crime. One of the things the governor has been talking about in the media is that's one of his must-haves for the legislative session being over. The Senate has been working those bills hard. Several of them have made it to the Finance Committee. That's the last committee before they would come to the floor to vote on them. So both of the sexual assault bills are in finance. Two other bills, one is on pretrial and one is on sentencing, are in the Judiciary Committee. So they're still being worked on. They're almost done, in which case they'll be moved to finance. And then State Affairs has the bill on probation, changes to the probation laws. And that is that last committee of referral also, and then the bill will go to Finance Committee. So the Senate has been working hard on the crime bills. I wanted you to know that because it's getting a little bit lost, perhaps, in the finance budget discussions. The constitutional amendments are something else that the governor keeps bringing up, rightly so. Of course, he's proposed some constitutional amendments, and he'd like to see them passed. So those are moving along also. The judiciary committees are still reviewing two of them. One of them is it's called Senate Joint Resolution 4. It would prevent a tax from going into place or an increase in a tax without a vote of the people. That's in Judiciary Committee. The other resolution, number 5, would put the permanent fund dividend in the Constitution. That's also in Judiciary Committee. The one that has made it, it's number 6, has made it to the Finance Committee is the one that creates a spending limit. And we've talked about those before. The spending limit actually today in our Constitution is, first of all, it's a very, very old statute. It was actually written 37 years ago. And if you pull out your Constitution and read that section on the spending limit, actually called an appropriation limit, that limit in 1982 was set at $2.5 billion. Well, there were provisions in that constitutional amendment that, by the way, the people voted on in 1982 that allowed for the increase in that spending limit to happen with inflation and population growth. And as a result of those provisions, that spending limit now is $10 billion. It's effectively no limit whatsoever right now. So I wanted you to hear that and to understand that, because then you can see the complexity of putting something in the Constitution. It has to be very clearly thought out. And that's what's happening right now with the proposed statute that is being proposed by the Senate Finance Committee that would set the spending limit at $5 billion. What the Senate Finance Committee is proposing is, let's dig into this as a statute. Even, we hope, put it into place this year and let it run for a couple years so that the legislature and the people can see how this actually works. Is it going to be something that will stay in place for a long period of time and not expand to $10 billion as the one we have the constitutional piece we have right now? Or what other little adjustments need to be made. So I wanted you to know that, because we sometimes people, I think, believe that we're postponing things because we're lazy, we don't understand the subject, whatever. We actually do understand the subject. We don't want to make a mistake with it. And I guess perhaps Senate Bill 91 might be an example of what happens if the crime bill that's very, very large and is kind of pushed through, and there were mistakes in it, and we're having to go back and correct them now. So I just want to encourage you with that. The budget is, of course, progressing along. The House has proposed an operating budget that makes about $200 million in cuts. And I'm getting emails from folks saying, well, that's nothing. You know, the governor is proposing a bill that makes $1.6 billion in cuts. That's actually not 100% true. The governor's proposed budget makes $650 million in reductions. The rest of that money, that adds up to $1.6 billion, is actually his additional appropriation for that very large permanent fund dividend. So just so you know that. The Senate Finance Committee is very hopeful that we're going to be able to present more cuts than the $200 million that the House has put in. So they're working hard, finding more places that can be reduced this year. Part of the problem is the reductions the governor is proposing can't be executed in a single year. They're government programs that we have in partnership with the federal government. And there are requirements that we can't cut those programs quickly. We have to get approval from the federal government. The other thing the governor does to achieve reductions is actually take from municipalities the money that they tax certain properties. The fish landing tax is being taken away from those communities that have the fishing industry. Oil and gas property taxes are being taken away from municipalities that benefit from taxing oil and gas property. There's huge amounts of numbers there, and several municipalities, the North Slope Borough, the North Star Borough, that's Fairbanks, Anchorage, Valdez, a couple others. These municipalities and boroughs benefit from those taxes. The governor is proposing taking that money away and putting it into state government. That means local taxes will go up. Speaking of taxes, today's tax day. Nationally, the Tax Freedom Day is actually tomorrow. So Tax Freedom Day is the day in which Americans have finally paid their federal taxes to the point they've earned enough money to pay the federal tax to the point that we pay for the nation's tax burden. For Alaska, our Tax Freedom Day is actually on March 25th because, of course, we don't have an income tax here in the state. But it's interesting to note, I noticed this on a national website, that Alaska has the lowest gasoline tax in the United States. I don't know how many of you know that. Ours is 1.76%, and that is the lowest in the United States. So the other thing to consider related to tax day is that permanent fund dividend. We pay taxes to the federal government on that proposed $3,000 check, right? So if, let's say, the permanent fund dividend does end up being $3,000, the average tax liability is about 25%. Federal tax liability. That would amount to a federal tax of $750. So the your take-home pay from a $3,000 permanent fund dividend check would be about $2,250. So I just thought I would point that out. Might be helpful information. In any case, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the Meet a Senator videos. I'm sure enjoying doing them, and I'm getting feedback from folks that have seen them that they really enjoy getting to know some of our senators better. We are a very diverse group of people. We have fishermen, we have university professors, I'm a nurse, we have people that work in oil and gas, We have people that work in the finance realm. So it's very diverse, and we all bring our skills and life experiences to this job. So I hope you're enjoying meeting them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week.